Hello, scholars. Hope all is going well. Here's where, one of the opportunities you have now is to educate yourself. I'm sorry I can't be there in class discussion. And in the class, watch the video, and I will focus primarily on Gregory and Charlemagne, coming after Augustine. Augustine to Gregory to Charlemagne is a great sort of way to see the transition from the ancient Roman Empire into what is going to be the birth of Europe. However, I give you this book here, this Cook guy who wrote the, is the original author of this. This is a very good book. It's really well written, and this is the chapter on the transition. And one of the great things about Cook is he understands and develops well this relationship of Christianity as it's moving through. And Europe is really created through the active work of the church, of especially bishops. And so it's going to be a merger of Roman, classical stuff, and then it's also biblical stuff coming through the church, and then it's also German. So there's sort of three parts that merge together here. So let me just start real quick. This is good stuff. Read this. This is classic stuff, Decline in the Fall by Edward Gibbon. What's fun for those of you who've watched the Gladiator movie with Russell Crowe, I encourage you all, rent it. It's good. You get the whole story here. Marcus Aurelius chose to leave the empire to his incompetent son, Commodus. Major transition in the fall of the Roman Empire. And in the movie, they introduced this guy, Russell Crowe, the Maximus character, and try and portray Marcus Aurelius as to trying to restore the old republic. It's a common theme in the ancient world and might be true, but we have no evidence for that. This is what we have evidence for. And so, you get the sort of Marcus Aurelius story here, well done, and then it leads to Diocletian, then leads to Constantine. And so, good stuff there, the good summary of a lot of things. And then with the Germanic culture here, this is all very interesting, especially if you're, interested in King Arthur and here's where the Carolingians we're going to talk about, and there's Clovis. If you're from Fresno, you love Clovis. And then that's the first, of the Louis. The Louis comes out of Clovis. So all you have these French King Louis. And then in Italy, what goes on, and it talks about Germanic law, Germanic things, a lot of issues that come up with that, sort of how these things are merging together. But the key issue for the Germanic model is that it's not a very intellectual model. It doesn't advance our sort of model of that we're working with, is that civilization depends upon an educational structure that is passing on good information. Under the Charlemagne section, it will talk about Alcuin, the bishop, and that's the guy that I'll mention in my video for you. But the key to this is Gregory, and Gregory is the bishop, and we'll talk. There's a lot about Gregory in here, and let me get to down here. There's more about the conversion of Clovis and Christianity and Venerable Bede. These are things that are really good to know, and they're really fun. And I want you to, be good to, if you want to email me and talk about this sort of stuff, there's Alcuin, the chief architect of the educational reform, which I will mention in my lecture video. Rule of St. Benedict for the Benedictines is important, where you get the monastic culture, sort of continuing the educational culture. And the Irish are very important. But Gregory here is this key figure that we're going to talk about, who creates a jurisdiction in which bishops in churches and monasteries in France and in Germany and in England look to this bishop of Rome as a person to answer questions, a person to give advice for wisdom and leadership. And this will be the beginning of a tradition of papal jurisdiction. Now, he points out here, this is the one place where I disagree with this book, but these guys know more than I do, so I don't know. But the thing is that he says that Gregory continued this claim of universal papal jurisdiction. Well, that's a big issue in history. There is no evidence of Gregory actually saying, I have universal jurisdiction. But he's quoting here an earlier pope who claimed universal jurisdiction. And this means that this idea that the pope in Rome actually has control over all the churches of the world. Gregory is more of a missionary relationship with the folks of the northern Western Europe. Now, this section here on Gregory is really good. It gets into his different writings, most importantly his emphasis on the pastoral care, his moralia, and his work with promoting Saint Benedict. So what we want to end with is just that you have this beginnings of an independent East, a Western Europe that became politically, culturally, and religiously independent from the East through the alliance of the Frankish monarchy and the papacy. And that's going to be Charlemagne, okay? So we'll talk more about this. But I hope you're all doing well.